make me.
Okay, so today we're going to follow on from last week's styles in InDesign. So firstly we're going to open up a new document. And then so last week we looked at styles. We covered object styles and paragraph styles. Today we're going to look at character styles. So first I'm just going to draw some text on the screen using the text tool, and then I'm going to go to type, fill with placeholder text, so we can see an example of what's there. Now I'm going to select this object containing the text, come over to my character styles and create a new style. You see here I've got the new style called Character Style 1. Firstly I want to click it and rename it. And one note about the name is you should be able to identify the style very easily just by its name. It's really important to come up with a style guide for how you name them, so that everyone in the group is understanding what this one style contains and you don't get confused and use the wrong style by accident. So I think this name, text body regular, makes it quite obvious what this style is about. So now if I double click it, I can then edit the style. Firstly you see we'll have the name, and if we already have existing styles we can actually base it on that existing style, so we're not starting from scratch every time. For this example we don't have any pre-existing styles, so we'll start from scratch. Here you can do the basic character formats. So if we want to change the font family, I prefer sans serifs or a modern typing font in person. You can change the font style, the size, remembering to use these preset sizes where possible. Now we have the leading, the kernel and the tracking. So I'm quite happy to leave these as default, but if you're familiar with what these are you can change them. Obviously if we turn preview on you can see the changes happen in real time, but the leading is the difference between the lines. The kerning is something that is determining the space between characters, and it's unique to individual pair of characters. But what we can change here is how the preset is determined, whether or not we're caring so much about the actual dimension, or if we're concerned more about the optical appearance. So for this instance I think I can leave it an optical. And then the tracking, if we wanted to change it, we could change the spaces, you know, between the words and characters. But I think I would leave that at 0 for now. We can also change the case. For instance, if I was doing a title or something and I wanted it to be all caps, I could do it here. Or I could even do small caps, or just normal, so it's both. You can also change the position. I wouldn't suggest doing this for an entire object, but if you wanted to change some font you could do it using this and create a different character style just for a superscript. But of course superscript is the text above text, and you commonly see this in chemical or mathematical equations. You can also have underline, ligatures, no breaks and strike through predetermined inside this. Note that once you select this, see how currently it has a minus, it means there is no style attached. So if I was to click this, it now turns to a tick, and that means this style contains underline. If I was to untick it, it's now empty, which means this style is determined not to have an underline. Or if I tick it again, it says it's undetermined, so I can add an underline separate to the style if I wanted. Here we've got the advanced character formats. I suggest not playing around with the scale or skew. Graphic designers go to a lot of effort to coming up with this typography, and it's quite unprofessional to then go and alter or modify this without some sort of design intent. What we can alter is the baseline shift if we wanted. Just to move it up from where your baseline exists. We could change the color of a character from here. We can also have a control over the tint and also the weight. Here you'll see there's two boxes, one for the fill and one for the outline. So you can have an outline and then control the weight here. You can also control whether the stroke is aligned to the center or aligned to the outside edge. Like so. And you could do something maybe like this if you want to do something where you have just a thin line around the text or something. It's really up to you. When we're talking about the underline option here, you see here the underline option is automatically set to not determined. If we tick this, we can then add an underline, and a good tool that we like to use is actually to change the underline to create like a highlighter effect, where you would then give it an offset equal to its font size, or less. Now it's a bit hard to see, but if I increase my lead, you'll see I have a clear highlighted effect over my text. What we can do is also control the tint, or what I also think is considerable to the opacity of this highlight. I can change the line that's used. And you can also change the color between these lines. And you can come up with some really interesting styles quite quickly. When we're talking about strike through and underline exists behind and below the text, so that's why we can still see the text on top of this. But when we're talking about strike through exists on top of the text. So it actually covers the text. Now if you wanted to create an object style again, we can call it something like body text outline. We can apply the effects that we've learnt already, such as stroke. We can control the weight of the stroke. We can change the corner options. Here we can also control the paragraph styles. So if we have a paragraph style already determined, which we haven't done yet, we can apply that here. So all the text within this object automatically gets determined by this preset style. We can change text frames and also text wrap, which we'll come to later. For now, I think I'll just add some drop shadow to make it a little subtle. Like that. Now we can also look at using the pen tool to create our own new shapes. Remembering we've learned how to do this in the other tool. So for this example, you can create a speech bubble if you're using something like this in your story. And the good thing is you can continue manipulating it like so. Now I'll just give it some weight so we can see it better. Like this. We can then automatically apply the object style if we want, or we can create a new one. Call this speech bubble. And now for the speech bubble, we'll change the things that we want here. Important thing when we're doing speech bubbles is to consider text wrap. We'll cover this more later on. So we have a speech bubble. Now if I wanted to come and add text to the speech bubble, all I've got to do is click inside the text, inside the object, using the text tool. Then I can fill it with my own text. Now here you'll see that the text is touching the edges and this is not desirable. So what we can do now is come back to what we learnt last week with, come back to styles with paragraph styles, and we can create a new style. Now to resolve this problem of the text touching the edge, what we can do is we can come down to advanced character. We can change the baseline shift to make sure it's away from the bottom. We can then change the indent to justify or centered maybe, depending on what works for your size and shape of bubble. We can increase the indent from the side of the page. I think you'll see that my text wasn't applying. There we go. So we can indent it from the left and right hand side. We can also remove hyphenation because we've only got a small amount of text. And we can also adjust the justification. So maybe if I'm wanting to justify this and my letter spacing is not allowing me to, I can adjust these here, starting of course with the maximum, trying to only do within a maybe 10% adjustment of each other. And now you see it's much cleaner and away from the edges. Just to quickly demonstrate what happens when we put these inside of the text, you'll see that the text is actually wrapping around. And you might just adjust this font size quickly. You can see it's automatically wrapping. And now we can see it easier. The text is automatically wrapping around. The reason it's doing that is because in this object style, under text wrap, I've selected this tool here, wrap around object shape. But if I was to get rid of this and put it back to normal, no text wrap, you'll see the text is now sitting behind the object. There are other options such as wrap around bounding box, jump object completely, only to the top. Or if you want, you can just have it fill to the right hand side, left hand side, or the largest areas. There's some other tools you can use if you're importing images, such as detect the edge, so the text will actually flow into the image depending on the contrasting pixels. For me, this won't change because this image is parametric already, and you can also do it to alpha channels or Photoshop paths if you have them already attached. Next, we want to use the pen tool to demonstrate how it's possible using type and path tool to add text to a path. And you come up with a graphically nice spiraling text. what we can also do is apply this text to path tool on objects, not just paths. So you'll see I've just added a circle. And using that circle I can then add my own text. And then give that a color or anything. You can even do this with external objects that you've created in Illustrator or Photoshop paths. Another tool is to create duplicates of an object. You can create an array very easily just by holding down the Alt key while dragging and then using the up and right arrow to increase the number of array. Holding down Alt and then dragging. Now letting go of Alt and hitting the up and right arrow. I can create an array of the objects. You can also do this with raw objects as you're creating them. And this can be a really quick way to create an array of shapes. What we can also do is using the font tool. Using the font tool we can create some really large text. And then selecting that text, we can then create an outline. When I find it, here, create outlines. And now that's converted the text into an editable object. An object that we can now manipulate as we like. Sometimes it doesn't let you do it because you must select the point first. Now once you've got your object transformed, you can even add the text. you can add the text to the stroke outline. Normally you can add the text to the outline. So just to refresh, I've made an outline, and then to allow me to edit this, what I'm going to do is go to Paths and release Compound Path. Now when you see when I hover over with the Type and Path tool, you'll see that I'm able to add the text. If I'm not happy where the text has been placed, using the white controls, you'll see at the end there are these handles. I'm able to move those handles and adjust where the text will flow. You'll see there's a plus button here as well. This is indicating that I have text that's no longer visible because it doesn't fit within the confines of the text box, or in this case, the path. So if I click this, if I click this plus, you'll see my cursor has now changed to some text. I can place this in another object. I can also place this in another text bubble if it exists, just by clicking on it. And this will link that object or that text bubble to this, so it will be a continuation. So whatever the text changes to in this box will automatically flow onto this box. Think of it as an overflow. So if I don't want to place this in an object, I can also just draw the text bubble here. And now this will be an overflow or a continuation. You'll see as I add text here, it's continuing on there. To demonstrate what I was talking about, you can also add the text inside other objects. What we can also do is play around with gradients. You'll see there's a gradient swatch tool and a gradient feather tool. The gradient swatch tool uses two colors to create a gradient. You'll see that this tool requires some fill to work. So if your object does not have a fill, you are unable, you maybe are unable to add the gradient to the object. If the object has a fill or it doesn't have a fill, the gradient can add a fill to it. The gradient feather, however, doesn't require a fill because this is requiring or adjusting the transparency in a feathered edge. You'll see that it's affecting both the object and the text. The reason being is this gradient feather tool is working in negative and positives, whereas the gradient swatch tool is working only in color. So that concludes most of the tasks. You should be able to use some of these tools to set up your template in InDesign.